try and turn this around so that I can see if... Are you able to see me or no? It turns me sideways.
It's fine. My chin is cut off from my side, but it's fine.
If I turn my phone around, does it turn me sideways?
Yes.
Oh dear.
So it's fine.
It's fine.
We'll be fine. Hi, Taniko. Hi, Lennon. Hi, Letty.
Letty, how are you guys?
Can you see the comments, Stella?
I can see. Yes, okay. I just see Lennon joined now.
Awesome. How are you? How is lockdown?
Lockdown is lockdown. It's not ideal. It's not the way of life. I don't like the way that people talk and say we have to get used to the new normal. This is not normal for me, and I'm not accepting it. I'm not happy with it. Yes. So, but we're trying to really breathe through these times. Hey, yes, so we have Mary Ann.
Hello, people. Thank you for coming through. So this is a segment called Africa Speaks, where we'll hear from voices from the continent and in the diaspora throughout the world, because I think it's good for us to hear each other's stories, to understand each other better, and to understand like what life looked like before the colonists came here. There was just harmony, there was life, and we got along so well. So I think this platform, I wanted to share each other's stories and for people to actually know more about Africa, because there are so many stereotypes about Africa. There are so many stereotypes about Africans. Even here in South Africa, there are stereotypes about people from other nations in Africa, which is shocking, you know. You are considered a foreigner in Africa. So it's something that hasn't sat with me so well, knowing how we're the same. Literally, we're the same, you know. We may have been born in other parts of Africa or in other parts of the world, but as long as you are African, we're the same. Literally, we're the same. So thank you for saying yes to being in our first episode. And
thanks so much, Vicky. I really, really feel honored to be the first one to be on the episode, so I'm so excited.
Yeah, and I want people to hear your story, because I think there's an assumption, especially from South Africans, of foreigners coming here. Like, you don't understand the full story, you know? And it's good to actually understand the full story. Some countries are in war. Some countries, there's no war, but there are opportunities elsewhere. And we need to actually figure out what other nations have and how other nations are not here to take from us, but we are here to unify and come together and actually build Africa again, make Africa great again, you know? Yes. So, the true mega, like the American mega is very racist, but this mega, the African mega is the best, you know, make Africa great again, because Africa was so great. Africa is so rich. Yeah. So can you please share your story? Because you were born in the DRC. Can you please just tell people what the DRC is like, your family life there, and how you ended up in South Africa?
Yeah, yes, I was born in the DRC in Kinshasa, the capital city, and we came here when I was 9. And actually, the story is very mingled. There's certain things that might be a little too personal here. We don't want to open up the Dr. Phil, the Dr. Phil. So I won't go into a lot of detail, but just what you're talking about, war and conflict. A couple of years, maybe, I don't know exactly how many years, but my mother's big brother was a journalist. Wow. And by the time we had left, it was Mobutu who was basically the Western power-instated president in Congo.
Wow.
And he was actually assassinated by the president because he was a journalist. He was writing about what the president was doing and his dictatorship ways and everything. And so he was my uncle was actually assassinated by the president. It actually traumatized my mother to the point where my mom actually has a literal handicap because she's got a deformity in her hand from that trauma. And other personal reasons, but all of those things together, my mom it was actually my mom's idea. She just went, no, my kids are not gonna be raised here.
Sure.
And she came here in 94 with my youngest brother, and then we joined, all the kids and my dad, we joined in 96, 2 years later. And that's the weirdest thing, because my dad was not in agreement to move here, because firstly he was better in terms of career and whatever than my mom was, and he was just like, are you actually mad? Because in 94, you know what 94 was in South Africa.
In South Africa, yeah.
Things look like they are going to implode. South Africa looks like it's gonna implode on itself, and you want to move there. But just to show you that someone found it better to be in South Africa, black in 94, than to stay in Congo. That's how tough things were. And my mother and my mom also had a prophetic look, though, at the same time, in that she knew that this is where the Lord is calling me and my children, and she managed to convince my dad to come over, and all the kids came over in 96. So I've been here around about 26 years. This year will be my 26th year in South Africa.
All your life.
Yeah. Yes, I've basically grown up here. I was 9. I was in grade 5 when I started in grade 5 here, and just a brief outlook on Congo. Congo has areas where the conflict is concentrated. So in the east is where the conflict is really concentrated. That's where women are being raped and murdered as weapons of war, and somebody shooting up at you every 5 seconds. Yeah, it's true. We were that trauma that you went through. Like, no, I'm not going to put my kids into that. I want better opportunities for my children, and that's how we left. Came here in 96.
Wow. And do you have memories of Congo? Like, do you still remember?
Yes, I do. Very, very slight, hey, because 9, you're not really a child, but you don't yet have really vivid and extreme and a lot of memories. But I do remember, Congo was it's like it was like a village. Although we were in the city, but we lived really like a village. You knew everybody. I mean, you the whole street, you knew everyone. You lived. You could go and eat in anyone's house. Anyone could. If you're being naughty, any parent in the street could discipline you. I mean, that was life in Congo. It was not. It's really not how it is here. I think here we could compare it to Ekas. It's not, and in the homeland, if I can say that. Yes, it's not as it is here in the suburbs where you won't know your neighbors for years. I mean, we really lived in a society where everybody was everybody's brother. As I say, 26 years, I don't know if that's still the life. But even when you talk to our cousins and our brothers who are still in Congo and our uncle, life has not moved away from there. I mean, you live like everybody is everybody's connected person, I don't remember a lot of our people growing up. I remember my very close neighbors. We've even stayed in contact now with social media and everything. I always have people add me, even on Facebook. They remember me, but because I was so young, I don't remember them. When I shared one of my pictures when I was small, that one with all the cheeks, one goes like, oh yes, yes, like now they have died out, but key things, I remember.
And have you gone back ever since?
I have to say this with so much shame. It is so shameful. It is so shameful. In 26 years.
Sure.
In 26 years, I haven't been back.
Wow.
In 26 years. So, like, someone will ask, do you then consider Congo home? Like, my husband tells me, because my husband has been in South Africa less than me, so he left more an adult than I did. And he only says, you wouldn't survive in Congo. Please don't ever go. You will not survive. Because I don't know. I can't even explain the why. It's also because South Africa, being here since you've been 9, this has been the norm. This has been life.
Yeah.
This has been home.
Yeah.
If I go, and I am planning to go because now I need to meet my in-laws, and most of my in-laws are in Congo. My kids need to go home. My kids need to know their heritage. But it would be very, very dishonest if I were to say that I still have the home roots. Like I'll go home and I'll be established and I'll fit in and I will flow and I will, it's not. I don't think it can really honestly be that.
Yeah.
Even for anyone who's grown up in Johannesburg, it's the same thing. If you never went home in KZN, if you never went home in you will come back and you will feel you'll feel like, okay, there's a shift.
Yeah.
So I haven't been home for 26 years. It's actually really bad.
But you are planning to. Yeah.
Yes.
Because you understand how important it is for your children as well to.
Yes.
And like your husband is also Congolese. It's not like you married a South African. So yeah.
Yes. Hey, not for lack of trying. Yeah, no. We need to. When we were growing up, I just realized something. You and I have known each other for like 21, 22 years now.
Yeah.
Because it was like we came to South Africa. I was not even in South Africa for 5 years, and that's when I met you.
Yeah.
But we didn't grow up knowing each other culturally.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know. Oh, wow! We just knew. You didn't. You might have known that I was Congolese, but you didn't know like which tribe is she? What is their food? We just blended into. It's like Europeanness. We knew each other in English, basically. And so that was not really the right way, and that's why now we realize the necessity of not doing that to our own children. Mm-hmm. Now you realize, no, even if you're not going to go home and blend into the surroundings, but you still should be able to know that, no, this is my place. Because in South Africa, as much as we've been here for long, you'll always be made to feel, you'll always feel, I don't know, sometimes you're not made to feel, but you'll always feel like, this is not home. Yeah. This is not my place. So our kids we have to go back and we have to ground them in our Congoleseness.
And I think it's a new thing that has erupted, I think, throughout the continent, because what colonization did, it brought this thing of I need to be more Western to be accepted, to be successful, and even growing up after the apartheid era, that was still initially the thing. You go to school, you learn English, you like speak proper English. We don't even learn our home languages most of the time unless you from the township or from the rural areas where you are lucky to learn that. But it's something that I think our generation has woken up and like, okay, guys, like this is not okay,
Yes. Yes.
I know people from just, there's no relationship of actually understanding where Stella really comes from and how, Stella came to be here and what does it look like what does it mean being Congolese? How many tribes, how many languages are in Congo? Where is Congo? You know,
yes.
If you could ask people about the African map, like to even just point out Gambia, like they wouldn't even know which direction, you know. So there's something that the West did to damage that African spirit, but our generation is waking up, because I think we also need to remember that our parents' generations and the previous generations and previous generations after that were traumatized. Literally lived lives of trauma, because you were always told you were less than. You were always told that your people are not okay. Even when Christianity came in, it's like, you guys are evil, we are right, you know? So do as we do, you know? You don't have a voice. And now we are learning to actually get our voice back and what it looks like, you know? So I love how you are saying that your children will actually get to go to Congo and actually know what it means to be Congolese, and home is South Africa. Home is South Africa because they were born there. But they also have roots, and I think it's something that we also need to dismantle in Africa. We need to go back to the African states and not have countries, you know, because that's also creating a division where there was no division initially. It's also creating an inferiority in some people where everyone viewed each other equals. And that's also a Western mentality that we need to like unlearn and actually start to build new patterns. Like there's a friend of mine, Kolo, who when her child was born, she said she's not going to they're not going to learn English at home. They're going to speak their home language at home. They'll learn English at school. And the backlash she got from Black parents saying that, how can you do that? And like the truth is, they'll learn English everywhere else. TV
anyway.
is in English, school is in English, you know. We are losing our language because we are trying to fit in other people's perception of what we're supposed to be like, and that's not who we are. So it's really important for our children to grow up knowing who they are, you know, before the world tells them who they are.
Definitely. And the other challenge is that you will realize it years later, but the damage has been done. Like you're saying, our parents were the worst traumatized. I mean, my parents didn't teach us our mother tongue. My mother and my father didn't teach us Chiluba because they said, where is it going to take you? You know?
Sure.
Where is it? So they taught us English. They taught us French, and they didn't teach us Chiluba. Sure. So we now grew up, and it was worse. Now you get into cousin meetings, and not all their brothers and sisters had the same mindset. Now you're in gatherings, and you're the one who's twanging French and whatever, and now you appear like you look like you're trying to be something. Now you are now older, and now you scrambling around in English, and you come to a point where you realize that no, this is who am I actually? You know, I don't have like my husband always. He's the one who knows the tongue, and if he always says, even in a situation of danger, you know, you can find yourself, you can say something quickly to someone and say, hey, in your language, you know, say, please quickly just get out here. We don't have that, because now we have to know each other in French, and that is not your tongue. You know, it's part of that trauma that you're talking about, and unlearning to say to your children, no, listen, you're gonna learn English anyway. That's the thing. Kids pick up languages like a sponge. You're gonna learn English anyway. But what we are instilling at home is your heritage. You're gonna learn your heritage at home. There it's the extra. So that even in their, because remember, your mother tongue, you don't just learn it when somebody speaks to you. It's from your mother's womb. That's already where you learn your mother tongue. Sure. And they say that even your cognitive development happens in your mother tongue. So it's not even it's not only maths and whatever. Your mental development happens from your mother tongue. So you can understand now, if somebody you were speaking to your husband or your family or whatever when your child was in the womb in your mother tongue, now the child comes out and you start now speaking to them in English. You see that it affects their cognitive development.
Yeah.
There are certain things that they will be a little bit not as fast because connections were not made quicker because they were developing in your mother tongue.
Wow.
So language is the core of culture. It's the core of being. So and we really need to get that back, and the colonizers, like when you talk about the colonizers, everybody that brought the gospel brought with it their culture. And they didn't distinguish. This is my culture. This is the gospel. It's even if you just even look at Nigerian churches. If you go into a Nigerian church, you go into a Christ embassy, you're gonna find the guys, they have that Pastor Chris, relaxed hair and that outfit, because they took the message and they took the culture, and sometimes they simulated together and people didn't distinguish. And the missionaries, God bless their hearts, a lot of them had the right heart, but in translating that, they sort of made their culture gospel. So that we now, in Congo, you have, even here in South Africa, you have your name, and then you have your Christian name in Congo. So that, you always have that, the English is assimilated to be the Christian, So if you are Western, you are Christian. Sure. If you are African, that's the demonic, that's the ungodly, that's the whatever. So that's where we need to, especially for the kids, we need to really start, training them in the right way to actually separate what is the gospel and what is culture.
Sure.
What is Western culture? See? Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. So I want you to go back to when you guys came to South Africa, and how was it coming into a new country? Your whole family, you have a big family. So what did it look like for you, and how was your perception of South Africa?
Yeah, as I say, my mom came in 94, and she, for some funny reason, she decided to bring us into Boksburg, where it's white, it is Afrikaans, and it is 94. So, yeah, we lived most of our lives, we lived, our neighbors were always white people. And so in 90, when I came in 96, there was, in our street, Connect Street, I don't know if you remember that long street in Boksburg. Our neighbors didn't even, we didn't have relationship with our neighbors. I remember it was only, maybe in Connect Street, it was maybe the last year or the second last year before we moved out of that house.
Yeah.
That our neighbors actually, we actually started playing with the kids and in that street and whatever. But for the most part, in Boksburg, we didn't interact with the neighbors. It was even just like normal, And the other thing is that was the saving grace for us, is that we got into church very, very early, very quickly. I got born again. So I came when I was 9, I got born again when I was 13. And then I was in church, going to church or coming from church. I was always in church. And thank God, there may have been other problems in church, but xenophobia and whatever was not one of them. We grew up, you and I, we grew up together. As I said, we didn't know each other intricately in terms of culture, but we just knew each other in terms of whiteness. But there was never a animosity. There was never any. I never picked up that in my church surrounding.
Sure.
In my school surroundings, though, that was another story. Because kids are kids in any way. You'll always be made fun of. You'll always be isolated. You'll always be. That was just a thing. I put it to childish things. It it would have scarred me in the same way that any other type of bullying, childhood bullying, would scar you.
True.
So in upbringing, to be honest, because I spent a lot of my time in church, I never felt isolated, never felt any animosity in Christ, in the brothers and sisters in the church.
Mm-hmm.
I did have to deal with it, as I say, in the school system, and in that way, that's where we learned a little bit not to confront, not to retaliate. Okay. Because I remember a specific incident where I had, in a classroom, you have kids making fun of you and whatever, and once I retaliated, and it was bad, because now I had, I was one against devil, so I
Sure.
just learned in that situation never to retaliate. So that sort of, dimmed a little bit negative my upbringing. But for the most part, I have to tell you, I have to be honest, because I was in church. Brothers and sisters in Christ, really, we didn't have that problem.
Sure. And when will you say you encountered xenophobia in South Africa most?
Yeah, as I can say, it's when it grew, as we were growing up, because I was in a Christian environment, I was sheltered a lot. I was significantly sheltered. Because I came out of high school, I was always, as I say, in church. Then straight out of high school, I went to Bible school. Again, there I was significantly sheltered, and brothers and sisters in the Lord saw you as brother and sister. Now you come out of there, and in varsity, it was my people. You never felt it in any way in varsity. Mm-hmm. But now you go into the workplace. Workplace was like, in the workplace, then you meet different people, because people have other experience. Because remember, while I'm having my experience with South Africans are having experience with Congolese people. Sure. And not all Congolese people are going to be good people, And they're in the workplace, it's a little bit more subtle, Some people are very overt. I remember one incident when we just started my article. It was in 2015, when it was the second wave of xenophobic attacks, if you remember. And I remember we were in a group just talking about it. And one girl said to me, actually, you know what? The only reason that nothing is happening to you is because we are both here in this air-conditioned office in Sandton. Sure. And we're earning the same salary. If in other situations, or if those people come and they are looking for foreigners here, hey, my friend, I'm sorry, ish, I will point you out. So that is it's in the workplace, it's a little bit more subtle, I won't say that in the workplace you could have somebody attacking you because you're Congolese. No. There's those subtle nuances. There's those, where are you from? Oh, are you South African? It's like, yeah, I'm South African, because I'm South African now by naturalization. I'm South African, like literally South African. You can go to Home Affairs in South Africa. Literally. But someone who asks, but are you like South African? It's like, let's narrow it down. So even in the workplace, it's still bad, but it's still mild. The worst place, and any Congolese person will tell you, the worst place to experience xenophobia, it's at Home Affairs. Sure. That's where you are like made to feel like wow. the crust of the worst is at Home Affairs.
No way.
It's at Home Affairs, because at Home Affairs, I don't know, I always like to think in the place of other people, and I only say, maybe what do they see? This is what I always say to Muya, and Muya always says, of course you will say that because you're South African, but I only say, what do the Home Affairs officials see? Sometimes they'll see people coming in there and they're trying to bribe, or someone is coming there with fake documents, or, so by the time you come there, someone is already, they've already had it up to here. And I can only count on my one hand how many good experiences I've had at Home Affairs.
Sure.
Normally, it's always. Even as a South African, it's still South African. That's any Home Affairs and governmental offices. That's where it's always the worst. I always wonder why. Yeah, but that's how it is.
Like, why do you think there's such a thing as xenophobia? Like, according to you, why do you think this is a problem? And, it would make sense, we know in Italy, like, there's xenophobia against the Africans coming in. But why is there xenophobia against a fellow African? Like, why? Like, what is it about someone else,
Yes. Some of these things, I say there's two issues wrapped up in one, and sometimes we need to separate them in order to deal with them adequately. Because in the xenophobia conversation, there is the poverty issue. Like my colleague said, because we are sitting together in this certain office and I'm earning the same as you, I don't have a problem with you.
Sure.
You see? So had those circumstances been different, there would have been a different thing. So there's the element of poverty. So if somebody has a job, they don't have time to go and put a tire around somebody and actually watch a person burn alive. Imagine. This is what happened in 2015. If you had a job, you just wouldn't have that time, even if you wanted. There's the poverty issue, and then there's what you talked about, the low self-esteem issue. Because this xenophobia doesn't affect the British brother in certain. It doesn't.
Like, what about the foreigners, the white foreigners, the foreigners from South America? Like, why aren't they affected?
Yes.
Why?
It's even the Indian foreigner is not affected. Even the Chinese foreigner. It's only the one who has this skin type who is affected. So you actually see that, no, this is actually a low self-esteem issue, and it is a poverty issue.
Sure.
This is why when I read some of these things on the hashtag on Twitter is put South Africa first.
Yeah.
Some of the things you actually see that it makes sense because people are in dire situations. So what they're saying is coming from that place of lack. And when you read from a place of lack, you understand where someone is coming from. Because as I tell my husband, in the natural sense, if my neighbor's child comes and says, listen, sorry, my parents are out there squandering our money and they are just busy partying and eating and they're not taking care of us, please can you help us out? I'm like, oh yeah, sure, come through, I'll help you out. And then I help you out, and then help you out, and then help you out. And then next thing, Naomi doesn't have anything to eat, and next thing, Esther doesn't have clothes because I'm helping you out. Naomi will turn around and go, oh, but mom, wait a second, So there's that conversation we need to have. It's actually a poverty issue that needs to be dealt with, the low self-esteem issue, but then there's also an element of ignorance, because a lot of South Africans don't know programs, maybe UN programs. Some things that you see that is happening to a foreigner here is because the UN has sponsored certain things. UN actually sponsors certain programs in South Africa for foreigners here who are in asylum and who are refugees, or you just don't know the place that this person is coming from. So it will look to you like, oh wow, this person is chilling. This person is chilling and just raking in, while here I'm South African, I'm not. So there's a lot of, it's very nuanced. There's a lot of issues in it that sometimes we don't dissect it properly and we call it xenophobia when it's actually not xenophobia. And other times it's just ignorance. I mean, one of the comments I read on the hashtag, one guy said, now even our government officials are betraying us because I know I grew up with this Zimbabwean guy and now he's got a South African ID. And I just went, this is ignorance. Because someone doesn't know how someone becomes, you can be born in Congo but come to South Africa, and through various processes you become a South African citizen. Someone doesn't know that and now has spewed this hate to say that, oh, our government, this person must have gotten it fraudulently because you don't know your own processes.
Sure.
So it's very nuanced. There's a lot of method in it. You can't blanket state it as xenophobia.
Yeah.
But yeah, it will take a lot for us to. It really all starts with, renewing of the mind or unlearning certain things, and because what will solve it a lot is once you understand that is my brother, that is me, that is me. I can't attack myself, but because we still have those, I'm South African, I am. It will not help us to go forward in that matter.
It won't. Like, honestly, it won't. And one of the things that I've been thinking about as I've been learning more about Africa and just what it looked like before colonization came, and when I think, because I'm a Christian, so thinking of what is the enemy trying to do to the Black people, because it's an attack not only on this continent but throughout the world, One of the things I was thinking of, I was like, it would be so amazing if we had like Pan-African history in our schools, because it opens up your mind to a world outside your own country, a bigger Africa, because Africa is big. I mean, there's a picture that shows that you could fit the US, you could fit China, you could fit so many countries within it. So to understand, we are such a strong people. Like, what is the enemy trying to do? Like, what do Black people have that the enemy is trying to crush us down? And what can we do now for our children and the next generation to actually learn more about this continent and to not see it as the world sees it? Because the way the world puts Africa, guys, we literally live in shacks. We don't know what shoes are. It's so backward, and that propaganda has been going on for so long, to the point where Africans who are not even born in Africa believe that to be Africa. And that's not the truth. It would be so amazing if we had Pan-African, neo-Pan-African programs in our township schools, in the rural areas, so people could actually know that, when someone comes to a different country, this is what it looks like, and what being African means. Just because you are South African doesn't mean you're not like anyone else, because when you look at the Bantu people, it's Southern Africa, it's Central Africa, it's a bit of the West Africa and East Africa. So if we could do DNA tests, if the whole continent could do DNA tests, you would see that you're just like your brother and just like your sister. So even in this fight for jobs, fighting against poverty, you would see that it's not a story for me alone. It's not a story for my country alone. It's actually a universal story. And if we don't work together, then things will continue to fall apart. Then we'll continue to envy other people. Then actually realizing that when you help your brother out, when you help other nations out when they are in trouble, like your nation was helped when we are in trouble, it creates unity. It creates stronger bonds, and it creates an understanding, that ignorance that once existed, the stereotypes that you thought of other people once existed, it diminishes. It literally really diminishes, and it would be so important. I think it's important for our children to know the history. And it's sad because when I did the research, the only country in Africa that knows and learns its own history is Ethiopia. They even speak Aramaic. They even know how to write in Aramaic. And all the other countries, we learn European history. It was the first time I heard of Petrus from the DRC. It was the first time I've ever heard of him. It was the first time I've ever learned of the guy from Belgium, like what he did in Central, like in the DRC and other countries. But it was like, why didn't we learn the truth? What is there in the truth that will actually help us know that we are actually much better than, I think we're the best continent in the world. We have the greatest potential in the world. We cannot be crushed. When you look at Black Americans, they've gone through slavery, they've gone through so much, but they still stand. They are still strong. They are still very resilient, and there's something in Africa, there's something in Africans that when we are distracted by other issues, we are unable to actually see the truth. We are unable to actually understand like why there's an attack on us.
The reason why there had to be this psychological warfare against Africa was because you couldn't break the African physically.
Sure.
That's why there had to be this intense psychological warfare. I mean, apartheid, was constructed and manufactured first by a philosopher. It was not just it had to be psychological. It first had to destroy the mind before it could deal with the person themselves, because you couldn't come at an African and just physically abuse them and destroy them. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, apartheid and slavery physically destroyed. I mean, Leopold, he had Congo like his backyard. Congo was his property. The whole of Congo and the Congolese people was his property, and physically destroyed people, but you couldn't destroy the soul of the African. So that's why there had to be this war in the mind, and even up until now, that war is happening. But now it happens at a higher level, because you ask yourself, if you and I are thinking this way, and we have this, is it a revelation? Don't you think, educational ministers also understand it?
Yeah.
Don't you think that those who are putting in this syllabus in the schools, don't you think they also have that thinking to say, listen, maybe let's not, teach World War I and, make Hitler look like a terrible person while we have Leopold here that we don't teach? Don't you think they also have that understanding? But because there's a lot of things happening in this world, in my mind, I believe that people just get bought out in this thing. So somebody is benefiting from the current chaos. There are people who benefit from Congo being what it is. Like you're saying, that it is Africa. If we were to be who we are supposed to be, the world will be on their knees.
Literally.
Just in Congo, 70% of the world's continent is in Congo.
70%.
Of the whole world, 70% of the continent that is allowing us to speak like this, because it's what is the key item in these smartphones, is sitting in Congo.
Sure.
Now imagine if Congo was standing correctly, and any company that wanted to come and mine coltan had to pay normal tax, had to pay normal VAT, had to go through the normal processes to get it mined. Do you know how China would be begging? Do you know how the US would be begging? iPhones would be begging. But because no one wants to be at the mercy of a black person, so the chaos has to ensue. The chaos has to happen. The mess has to go, so that someone can just go somewhere and just pluck a mine where there used to be a village, where there used to be people, just wipe them out, and then they'll say, no, they are rebels. That's another story for another day.
What's his name? Is it Idi Amin?
Yes.
Who was portrayed, as this evil man in Africa. Like, all these people are financed by Europe. All these people are taught by Europeans. Like, for you to be great, you need to actually do this. You need to kill this people group, and then your people group rise, and then you are powerful. And that's been the thing. That's been the thing. Like, with Thomas Sankara, that's been the thing. Like, he was rising. He he had this knowledge. He had this thing of making Africa great, even with Gaddafi. Like, even though he was not a perfect man, but he had this thing of Africa needs to unify. Africa needs to start to work together. Africa needs to make sure it's not influenced by foreign voices for it to actually be great. And then what happens? Assassinated. Everyone who has a voice, everyone who carries a powerful vision of Africa is assassinated. And that's the saddest reality. And the weird thing is we never know. We always see it as a black person. We never actually see that there are other influences. There are other people behind this thing happening.
So it's a lot of strings in the background in this. And once we understand that and accept that, we will stop fighting each other and look at the masterminds behind everything. So that's also it, because once you understand it, then you won't look at your brother as a foreigner. You'll see that no, somebody else is behind all of this. Let's deal with the poverty issue. Let's hold our leaders accountable, because if all Congolese people turn around and say, "Hey, you are my leader. I am a constituent. You need to take care of me. I shouldn't be running to South Africa to be taken care of." We will be able to deal with these things. But, we're still in the low level fighting each other and fighting for peanuts. So
literally. And if you were to tell the world about Congo, like things that the world doesn't know, like this, that 70%, like I feel like the world doesn't know. The world doesn't know where most resources come from. They have no realization. Like, if Africa were to close its borders, like that, the world would not function, because most of everything comes from here. So if you were to tell just share to the world what Congo is, or just different facts about Congo, what would they be?
The biggest thing about the Congolese continent, like I just shared, it's minerals. This again is why they call Congo the geological scandal. She is so rich, filthy rich on minerals, that she attracts all of this, like, a beautiful woman that attracts all of the wrong types of men. That's how Congo is.
Wow.
I remember one pastor said he went to preach in Congo in a village, and the members of the church didn't have anything, couldn't even give him a little bit of money to help him out. So that one of the guys came, he said, "You know what, this is just coming out of my yard. I hope it can help you in a little bit, but we don't have any money." And when they gave him this heavy box, like an ice cream 5-liter box of something in there, he did not even know what it was. But when he now went home and figured out, it was like pure mercury. The items that they use in thermometers or whatever. Pure mercury that was coming in someone's yard, coming out of someone's backyard. That's how filthy rich Congo is with minerals.
Wow.
And the Congo has tried a lot to raise its head. Like Patrice Lumumba, maybe you know him. That's where Patrice Motsepe is named after Patrice Lumumba. Tried to raise its head, and he was sort of the Nelson Mandela of Congo, and of course he was also assassinated. So that the minerals and the wealth that comes out of Congo is what is sustaining Africa and sustaining a lot of the economies of the world. That's where also, just in general, you see also Congo is the base of other African music. Most Congolese, most people who love rumba music don't actually know that it actually comes from Congo.
Sure.
So Congo is the place where you find the liveliest Congo, African music. It's also rooted from there. Wow. And Congolese people in general, not to speak at specifics, but Congolese people in general just have a loving heart. They're just we really are a loving people. Anywhere where you will find Congolese people, you will really find just a loving people. Someone who will get out of their way to assist and get out of their way to help you. You know, so that's just in general, but not just in what I would want other people to know about Congolese. But Congolese people also need to have a lot of unlearning to do in terms of South Africans. There's a lot of stereotypes, you know, because as we say, when you're ignorant, you rely on stereotypes. You know, if you don't have specifics about a person. I grew up among South Africans, so nobody can come to me and say, "Oh, South Africans are." I'm like, excuse me, I know South Africans, but Congolese people really have a negative stereotypes about South Africans, and that also needs to be dealt with. It's a little bit of a protective mechanism that is used to just be like, hey, I don't know what will come out of this, so let me just protect myself. But there's also that stereotype, a lot of those stereotypes that Congolese people themselves also have to deal with.
Sure.
Yeah, so the history of Congo is very, very traumatic. As I say, that our parents are the ones that dealt with a lot of the trauma. Wow. So if you find someone like me who's grown up here in South Africa, know that those parents really were traumatized. But from the kids that are now being brought up, we're starting to learn those things and starting to unlearn certain things. And I think this generation, like my mother saying, the generation is really going to do some good things if we can just carry on in this trajectory. Yeah.
Sure. That's so beautiful. And what would be your dream for Congo first, and then your dream for Africa?
Oh, Congo. I want to retire in Congo. Even if not, things get better now for us to be able to because for me, if things will settle and things will get to the point where they are as it is in South Africa now, I wouldn't even think twice to go home.
Wow.
Because South Africa is way more enlightened in these matters than Congo. So in Congo, you still have for the most part, people still believing in whiteness is rightness. So we still have a lot of that in Congo.
Sure.
So for my dream then, especially for our generation, so my cousins and whatever, is really for us to get out of that European mindset that is still holding our people. If the European and the Western world would just leave Congo alone, because people think that you're looking for handouts, but actually it's just like, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. If the European forces would just leave Congo alone, even if you will struggle for years to find your feet, if you will just struggle for years to settle, but you will find your way to live even without the European structures that sometimes people say those European structures is what is holding the country together. I just wish that the European powers would just let Congo be.
Yeah.
And then Congo would establish itself as a proper country with proper governmental structures. Because now, as it is there, if somebody finds minerals in a house, a minister can just come and take your house, and some European guy just pays him maybe a fraction, a one of what would come out of that mining those minerals there. And then just a connection happens because I know one company in Europe, they just come and establish it and it's finished. It's like that.
Sure.
And leaders don't think for their people. So leaders are not thinking for the future. And so the country is just being depleted and is resources being stolen just like that. If we could have a Congo that was structured, you know, we would, oh no, wow. I'm just, even just thinking about it, it's just, bringing joy in my heart. It would be a nation. Oh, it would be a nation that would blow the world's mind.
Yeah.
So my heart is really that our leaders would establish proper protocols. You know, they're saying that it started now because some ministers are now being jailed for doing those type of things. Okay. Where somebody just gives, literally sells the country as if it's their personal property. So that's my heart. My heart is to have a country that has proper structures. In that way, you have autonomy. Then you can be able to say, I'll sell this at this price, I'll do this at that price. Yeah. But currently, we are the price takers of our own minerals. So yeah, it's really tough.
Because even now in Mali, for the past months, there's like a revolution, and I guess there are revolutions happening throughout the world, but there's a revolution happening in Mali, and what they are protesting for, like, not only for the government to change, but they are asking for France to leave. Yes. They are asking for like France, can you leave so we can start over again? Because also when you look at the history of Mali, and this is the same for every country within Africa, it's so rich. The richest man who has ever lived on earth comes from Mali. So because of what's been happening, people have lost their voices. People have lost who they are. And I guess this generation knows better. This generation isn't as traumatized as the previous generation. So there's something that's happening and welling in us that definitely things need to change. And this is how things change. And it's not saying that France is evil or whatnot. It's saying, France, can you give us an opportunity to be ourselves?
Yes.
Yes. You can meddle in your own affairs, but can we fix our country without? Because we've seen from the past, having you guys here, it's creating more damage. You guys are thinking for yourselves. You guys are thinking for Europe. You guys are thinking for your own country, and you're not thinking for us. You're not thinking for the generations to come. And that's been the cries of their hearts, because as you've said, with leaders are the ones who are also...
Oh, thank you, Fee. Sorry. Just dropped off there.
It's okay. I think it does an hour thing. So people have been commenting that we need a part 2. So I think we'll definitely have to work on doing a part 2.
Yes. Yeah.
Because,
just let's do that. Let's set up a part 2. But as a wrap up, I just want to note one thing.
Okay.
One thing we must not forget is the prophetic call of Africa. The prophetic call of Africa, just like the call of Christ, is what caused Herod to rise with his venomous anger, and he decided to kill off all the boys under the age of 2. Other people who were not even involved in that issue, found themselves entangled, and little kids were killed because of the prophetic call of Christ. The prophetic call of Africa is also what is causing the rage of the enemy against her, to cause her to be stifled. The prophetic call Africa is youth. The prophetic call of Africa is to evangelize the world. If you see the African map and you turn it around, it actually looks like a gun.
Sure.
And the trigger is in West Africa.
Wow.
While where it goes out is in South Africa.
Wow.
And the goal and the goal of the Lord in the world is for the world to know Christ. And Europeans at one point were the ones that God used a lot, and they opened themselves a lot to be used of God to spread the gospel. That cannot be denied. But in this modern day, they have now backslidden. Europe and West Africa, West America, West Europe, America has backslidden.
The West.
The gospel in America is now very much commercial. The gospel in Europe is very much dead. We had one guy who came in our company to do a CIS, some what can I say, charity in Alex with us, where we go and teach in schools. Okay. And as we had him there, I now started to speak to him just about Jesus. And the way that you speak with this guy, he came from Britain, and he said that there's actually gospel music or gospel books are put in the other section of bookstores. There isn't a store like a gospel direct here where the gospel. He said you could find people in Europe who don't know Jesus. Not like they don't know Jesus as a Lord and Savior, but like they actually don't know who Jesus is.
Yeah.
So Europe has now backslidden, and God has given the mandate to Africa to evangelize the world, to display the wonders of God in this generation.
Sure.
And because of that, the nations are rising up against her.
Wow.
Because once Africa is freed, Africa will say, look at God. And because of that, the nations are raged against her.
Sure.
This is why now God has used the diaspora. You remember even in the gospel how the persecution of Christians is what caused the gospel to move. Because now literally, people were spread, they were being killed, they were being chased, and because they spread Christ. And now, because Africans are being spread around the world, running away from war, running away everywhere, they are bringing Jesus. And this is why all of that we've discussed must come back to this foundational thing, that the gospel must be preached through Africa.
Sure.
God will use Africa to declare Christ to the nations. So that's what we must always keep. Even when we are praying, when we pray, yes, we want to pray that God will stop the wars and God will stop the suffering. God will stop xenophobia, and God must be revealed through Africa.
Wow.
Thank you so much for having me. Why are you making me cry?
This is important. Well, okay, we're going to do an episode 2 for the rest of you guys who missed it, because I think there are still things that we need to touch on. But the person who I'll be talking to after Stella, her name is Donika from Florida. And the thing that you've touched on, she's always said, as a Black American, as an African American, that we are missionaries for that has been her thing. So it's interesting that we'll finish off, we'll have an episode 2 and finish off what we need to finish off, and like talk in depth of actually knowing our mandate as a continent and knowing our mandate as a people, because like out of every continent throughout the world, Africans are always the friendly people. Africans are always the warm people. It's one of the reasons why colonization came, because unlike, in China, they didn't want foreigners, like stay away, they literally closed their borders. But with Africans, we are so welcoming. We see the best in people. Like even when we don't know these people, we see the best in them. And I feel that it's something that is that heart is coming back to this generation throughout the world, in the diaspora. And it's something that we need to, I think it's a big part of God that the world needs to see, the world needs to encounter. So this is, it's an amazing thing that you touched on. It's a powerful thing that you touched on. And, Stella's though. Stella, are you back? So we'll just definitely conclude. You froze for a bit, but you're back now.
Okay.
So we'll definitely conclude.
Yes, I'm back.
Are you free next week, same time?
Yes, next week, same time, same place.
Mm-hmm. So we'll definitely do an episode 2, and then we'll take off, because I think there are still some other questions that I would love for you to answer, and what you've spoken of during this last part, I think it would be good for us to unpack it even more, because it's powerful, and I think it's the vision and the mission behind Africa Speaks, because I feel that everyone has a pocket of that prophetic or that vision for this world, that vision for Africa. So it would be so nice to touch on that.
Yes. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you so much. It was really great talking, and then we'll talk again next week. And thanks to everyone that joined us. It was really, really lovely, Fee.
Thank you, guys, and to those those who just joined us like 10 minutes ago. I'll have both videos on IG Live or even on YouTube, but I'll let you know when everything is, because I think I have to wait a bit before I put everything on YouTube and on IGTV. But thank you so much for joining us for our very first episode of Africa Speaks. I'm excited. I'm excited for the other voices from throughout the continent and throughout the world that you'll hear from. But thank you so much, Stella, for giving us your time and sharing your story. And I'm looking forward to next week. I was just shocked by today's episode. Like, your heart, that prophetic vision is so powerful. And I feel that like all of us need to see that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Free. Thank you so much. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Letty's saying now she wants to talk to her babies. Okay.
Okay, it's fine. So guys, please share this thing. If you know anyone who's interested and who has the same heart for Africa, make sure they tune in next week, and see you guys. Bye.
Bye.